Today's author is an author that I've actually read the most in David Sedaris. He is for sure top 2 or 3 authors I like to read. It all depends on what I want to read. Like if I'm trying to really learn something, it's probably not what I'm going to go to, obviously. But if I want to laugh, if I want to be entertained, if I want to be inspired, because he really is probably inspiration for a lot of what I do day to day, he is who I'm going to go listen to, or in terms of him reading his stories or read his books. I have his most recent book here today in Happy Go Lucky. I don't have the physical copy here because I bought it actually as an ebook, and I wrote on the Instagram post or the Instagram story that I made about it that I actually finished this in a club. And I remember I was at a DJ event. It wasn't my favorite artist, and when I'm in public and stuff like that, I like having a book on my phone or something like that and just scroll through it and just read a book if I'm in public, if I'm somewhere where I'm kind of unengaged or disengaged, rather than let my mind wander and do something stupid. I'll just pull out a book and start reading. So that's how I finished this one, and I finished it September 22nd, 2023. So a while ago, but not that long ago. And I will also admit that I uniquely have a difficult time reviewing David Sedaris' writings and books. Probably because I'm such a big fan, I don't feel like I have the right. Probably. But I'm also not critiquing it. I'm not saying what the book should have been. I'm just giving some insight into what I felt the book was. Like I usually do, give my main takeaways, and then I'll let you guys know who it's for. But I felt it was important to highlight the fact that he's one of my favorite authors, and it's coming from that perspective. So my first main takeaway from this is the freedom of writing about deceased people or dead people. And this is going to be a very grim point, but from a writer's perspective, there are only certain things you want to write about somebody while they're alive, especially somebody that you care about. And not to say you should just bash the dead, and I really got this idea from David Sedaris' masterclass. I took his masterclass, and he talks about the freedom of writing about people after they're dead. And I've seen it in his previous books when he talks about his sister, Tiffany, but in this book specifically, he talks about his dad and the rocky relationship he's had with his father all throughout his life. And when he died, I think he was 65 years old. So a 65-year-old man discussing dad issues after his dad's died, and thinking about the perspective of his father. Because some of the final stories are also of when his dad's older and has dementia and can't even remember enough to be the mean guy that David knew almost his whole entire life. So him thinking about these things, but the freedom in which David was able to write honestly about his dad, with his dad being passed, it was pretty eye-opening. It was pretty eye-opening, the type of range he was able to discuss his father in terms of not embarrassing his father while he was alive. My second main takeaway, and this is a David Sedaris takeaway more than it is from this exact book, is staying current with your writing. He wrote a lot about lockdown. He wrote a lot about being in Manhattan during lockdown, being able to walk around, the streets being open. And it really, in this book I read in 2023, I think it had been released in 2022 maybe early 2023. And so I'm pretty sure. And with that being said, it really shows the power of David Sedaris consistently writing and being able to stay relevant with his writing and always updating his stories and always telling stories that are new. I see the power of that in this, because obviously he has so many books. I don't know how many, at least 8 to 10. And with that being said, he's constantly able to bring up new stories, and that's just through him refining his artistry and writing constantly, and staying relevant. Because so many of these writers, you read it and stuff. Great writing is timeless, yeah, but great writers, like in current times, can also keep up with the times. And it's clear that David Sedaris has his ear to the street, and he's able to keep up with what's going on constantly and give his perspective of it, and you're going to get a book within like a few years. It's kind of like a stand-up comic almost. How if you go see the stand-up comic's new hour full of new jokes, like that's what makes a great stand-up comic is the fact that they have that new hour next year when you see them. And David Sedaris be having that new hour or multiple hours worth of reading. Also linked with his father and linked with his family talkings, and as he's gotten older, even him becoming as honest as he is. He's always been an honest writer, but I see the honesty coming out even more as he gets older, in talking about his father, and talking about his past, and talking about how he felt about things happening in that 2020, 2021 time, his perspective being locked in as somebody who likes to adventure out and who likes to travel as much as they do. So just the power of honesty. And this is another just Sedaris point for all of his writings, is when somebody is as honest as he is, there's almost always something to be taken like away from it. Obviously, he's a great writer, so it's the great writing mixed with the honesty. But when those two are combined, it almost like can't be stopped. My last main takeaway is how long unresolved parental issues last. Like, he had issues with his dad his whole life, and like I said, he was 65 when his dad died, so he's already lived most of his life like resenting a man. That gives a certain level of power. And I'm not speaking to his father issues or speaking to the issues his sisters had with them or anything, but I am seeing the impact of, if you have some issues with your parents specifically and they're unresolved, they can mess with you for a very long time. Because it seems like when you're a kid, it's like, all right, when I'm 18, I'll be rid of these people. And obviously that's not real, because most people need help from their parents past then. Obviously, there are people who leave home at 15, 14, whatever. But most people are around their parents and still even lean on their parents or need help, or at least advice from parents as you get older. But you can see how if there's issues and you let issues escalate with parents, it can cause like some lifelong heartache and lifelong frustration as well. Because eventually your parents are going to need you. And now somebody needs you that you resent in such a bad way, maybe, or that you don't feel comfortable being around. It just makes me think about my own relationship with my parents, and not that I'm at the point with David Sedaris or anything, but everybody's had tiffs or things in the past with their parents. It just kind of keeps it all in perspective, I guess. So now I'm going to move on to who I feel like Happy-Go-Lucky is for. And first and foremost, like any other David Sedaris book, if you love stories, he's the master storyteller, probably one of the greatest in American history. Definitely the best storyteller I've ever read. The stories just keep you like trapped in. They're funny, they're entertaining, they're not super political. It's just ideal writing. This is why I struggle reviewing it, because I don't have great words to accompany how I feel about the writing, because I think it's some of the most powerful and moving words on paper that we could have, really. The way that the stories are written, the understanding in which you have to have when you read the story, like, it's so well written you couldn't be confused. It's interesting. Who I also think it's for is people with father issues, people who have problems with their dad, who even stay in their dad's life and have problems with their dad, because it's a different element if your dad disappeared and you never see him. But if you've had 60-year problems with one person like that, and it's not from them being estranged, I think you might be able to learn some from how he sees it. learn some from him going through the death of his father, learn some from him going through the sickness of his father, and perhaps gain some perspective. So I think that's somebody else who would enjoy some of these stories. And obviously some of these stories have nothing to do with this, so please don't think that this book is all about that, because that's another reason why these books are so hard to review, because there's not really one central theme. Like, there's a theme that's hit on, but then you'll have a story about something completely random or something completely different. He doesn't really have to have like one central theme, because these aren't like memoirs. They're like more like a comedy special where he's going and writing about what's going on in his life. Somebody else who it's for, it's funny. I said it before. If you like humor, if you like laughing, David Sedaris is for you. If you like laughing and you like thinking about the jokes, it's obviously not just stupid jokes, but the irony of the situation and him able to word it, and him able to draw the picture in your head, and you laugh at the situation in your head. It's masterful. So, fans of humor, and then people who want to hear some stories from lockdown, even from a man who has everything, has all the money you would really want, and still was stuck in the same position we were. The way he saw the world, the things that were happening social justice wise and stuff in that time, it's interesting how he exists within all those things. So guys, Happy Go Lucky, another great book by David Sedaris. There's so many stories I've read by him at this point. They kind of all run together, so I really have to go back and see and even look at kind of what reviews about the book and things like that to even remember exactly what stories were in that book. And I went back at the titles and stuff. So if I don't fully embody the book, I do apologize. But when it comes to David Sedaris, you really can't go wrong. I appreciate you guys for checking out another episode of GP's Library. Happy Go Lucky by David Sedaris. I'll see you guys next time. Go pick up a book.